In fact, let's go right now to Chris Tomasson, who used to be a writer here in town, used to cover sports here for the Rocky Mountain News, and now writes for the Pioneer Press and TwinCities.com to talk about the Mike Wallace situation. Hey, Chris, welcome to the show. And are you now, and are the Vikings now wondering what exactly they have in Mike Wallace after hearing what the Pouncey brothers have to say?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me. When the conversation turned to Rex Chapman there, I'm surprised you didn't talk about him allegedly stealing from Best Buy. So, but that's another police docket story, I guess. But anyhow, yeah, I think they kind of, the question about Mike Wallace is, you know, they know a little bit what they're getting into. This guy has had some shaky incidents, and one was the season finale last year where he allegedly refused to go in for the second half. He denies that was the case. But as we see from the Pouncey brothers, they think it was the case. Marquise used to play for Wallace, play with Wallace in Pittsburgh, and Mike Pouncey played with him in Miami. And as you can see by that film clip, they're not exactly best buddies, apparently, with him, even though Wallace claimed on Twitter they are.
Chris, you know, we've seen a number of guys who have had trouble in the locker room, and Percy Harvin's one of them, a guy who actually played for Minnesota at one time, bouncing around, despite all the talent bouncing around. So Mike Wallace has gone from Pittsburgh to Miami and now to Minnesota in the space of, I think, three or 4 years. Is Mike Wallace, despite all that talent, despite all that speed, is he turning out to be just one of those Percy Harvin type guys that nobody wants in the locker room?
Well, you know, I dealt with him a little bit. I was down in Miami at the start of the 2013 season, and I dealt with Mike Wallace a little bit, and he seemed like a really good guy. He's a great interview. Of course, he says crazy things like he vowed to have a 2,000-yard receiving season that year. He almost got halfway there. I think he had like 930 yards. So he's the kind of guy, I guess, that can maybe seem kind of engaging, but then you talk to people who really know him, and they say, well, he's not exactly that type of guy. So I don't know if he's an Isaiah Thomas guy who will smile at you one minute and then stab you in the back the next. I don't know, but we'll find out.
Silently sitting here because I believe that Mike Wallace decided to go to Minnesota because Chris had gone from South Florida to Minnesota. Is there any truth to that rumor, Chris?
Well, I'm looking forward to some interviews. He gave me some great stories in Florida. He was, he's a very, confident guy. He says he's the fastest player in the NFL. And then he was talking about LeBron James, about how he could play tight end in the NFL right now. So he's a great interview. So we like those kind of guys, as you know, Woody.
Well, the other big question I have in my mind is Minneapolis and St. Paul is like a gopher hole. They have all these tunnels that go from one building to the other. Have you ever spent much time there, Les?
I have, but
yeah.
That's why they call them the Minnesota Gophers.
Yeah. Oh, really? That must be it, because you can actually go all the way across downtown Minneapolis.
From high-rise to high-rise to high-rise.
Without going outside, because if you go outside, you're going to freeze your ass off.
Via the skyways.
How do you like that, Chris?
Well, I never go outside. Oh, it's cold. I wouldn't know. I never go outside. You don't have to, as you just said here. And the Super Bowl's coming here in 2018. So
not looking forward to that one, Chris.
Maybe that can be their motto. Come to Minnesota in the winter and never have to go outside.
Yeah, come to Minnesota and leave quickly is what the motto should be. I do want to be serious with you. What do you think the outcome of Adrian Peterson's going to be? A lot of people assumed that maybe during that flurry of free agency that the Vikings would try and unload him, but do you think it's quite possible that they can just reunite? I mean, they've met and go on as if nothing. I mean, something obviously happened, but they could go on. He could play there and spend another 2 or 3 years there.
That's what they're thinking. I mean, he's under contract, and they're thinking that Adrian Peterson's just going to wake up one day and everything's going to go away and everybody's going to be happy and what have you. I mean, he is under contract, obviously, and I don't think there's anything close to trading him. They're continuing to have discussions and re-recruit him, if you want to call it that. But at some point, they're going to have to ask themselves, you know, is it worth it? They've got a young team here, young quarterback, Teddy Bridgewater. Is it worth it to possibly, you know, have a guy on the team, the star, who doesn't want to be here and could tear the team apart? Is that good for the team's future? If they decide it's not, then they might have to move him. But, you know, right now, I think the plan is to keep him until anything changes.
Chris, the Vikings are locked into Teddy Bridgewater. You mentioned him. What do you think of Teddy Bridgewater? Do you think he's a guy who could, at some point, become one of the better quarterbacks in this league?
Yeah, I think he certainly can. I mean, he's got that temperament. He never seems to get rattled, and had a very strong rookie season. And he's not the type of guy who seems to really even enjoy the limelight. I mean, he's kind of more of a homebody guy. He's certainly not a Johnny Manziel type in that area, which is a plus for him. And yeah, I think they got a good one, and he could turn out to be that franchise quarterback they've been looking for a long time.
I must have fallen asleep for a couple of years, Chris, not by anything you said, but I'm trying to figure out what the stadium situation is in Minneapolis, St. Paul, on all their arenas and stadiums now. Would you give me, I'm always a guy that's interested in stadiums and stuff. What is the situation on all the teams and where they're playing now?
Okay, I'll give you the rundown. NFL, they're building a brand spanking new stadium where they'll have the Super Bowl in 2018. It'll open for the 2016 season. So next season they'll play their second of two seasons outside at University of Minnesota.
See, I thought I'd fallen asleep there, Chris, because I thought they haven't moved into the new stadium, and I knew they were playing at Minnesota for a while, and I think somebody blew up the Humphrey Dome.
Yeah. They are
time ago.
Chris.
Chris, baseball. I got to give the rundown here.
Well, yeah, but I want to just ask about the football. They're not being dummies like the baseball team. They're going to put a roof on the football stadium, right?
Yeah,
okay,
it's not
good.
even retractable. It's a full-fledged roof.
Good.
There'll be some windows. Yeah, baseball stadium is outdoors, and it's about 5-6 years old. The Target Center, the dreary Target Center, which is like 25 years old, they're allegedly renovating it. I don't know what hope there is for that. And then the hockey team actually plays in St. Paul at the XL Center, which is, you know, about 10 years old in a pretty nice place.
Well, I just think people had lost sight of what was going on there because they have had more arena and stadium issues and ballpark issues than most any city until you get to San Diego. It seems like.
Hey, Chris, really appreciate your coming on the show, and we'll see you around the bend, all right?